or you're building something that requires the expertise necessary, right? You don't want to just say, oh, let's just hire 20 junior developers and put them on the project, because now the senior developers are now having to police the junior developers aside from doing the work itself. So,
No, but it's a digital transformation.
and we're live. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
Hey, Odie, I'm alive. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
That's
So, what
what's
are we
up.
doing today?
Today I think we'll read off some comments from different episodes and maybe share our thoughts on the comments from some of our viewers. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. Mm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about some comments that we had. And so
Yes.
like if I pull up one, there's one comment, and then you
Okay.
can use your editing skills to project it on the screen later. Is we did an episode on, is AI going to replace software engineers?
Okay.
And I thought that was like one of the recent ones that we did. This says April 1st, so maybe that was our last episode. And I was venting saying that I'm so over AI, and it's the job market, the every I think I was saying that AI was like a spray can similar to agile, where
Mm-hmm.
like companies just say that they're AI or they're using AI and somehow they're supposed to be relevant and more marketable. And you were kind of, from what I remember, saying, yeah, they get pressure from shareholders.
Yes.
Um, so, anyways, that's the context, and there was a comment in which a viewer named Polaris Soy, or it could
Polaris
be,
Zero I or Polaris Soy or something. Yeah.
yeah, Polaris Zero I. I guess that is a zero. He commented, and he borderline wrote like a 4 paragraph essay, and I'll just read it off.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Keep giving us those essays. We really appreciate them, by the way. So,
yeah, it
and
makes me happy.
I think that's the whole point of this video, right? Is to have that conversation as well.
Yeah. So it says, you guys hit it, or take two. You
Yeah.
guys
Go.
hit on it for sure. AI, as it now has replicated the human ability to discover the important signals and input that give the answers that it has been told to look for. It's the same as a baby being bombarded by its senses and learning to understand what is important and what it should ignore in order to interact with the world around it. That's the baby adjusting the weights of its neurons to create a processable signal to its brain. Then he goes on to say, what it doesn't have, it's the human capacity for relation building structures to the same capacity as humans do. A layer of a machine learning model has a somewhat primitive version of this, but because it's focused on single tasks, even if complicated, it cannot learn how problems relate to each other in the same way humans do. For now, or for now though, I think most of the hype is marketing to their current employees and future ones that are doing something important to the future of humanity, which let's admit is complete BS and has always been when companies do this. It's the same brainwashing crap that always pull, same as pretending they understand agile and all the high five nonsense they do try and make the working environment seem like it's hospitable and caring, even when they know if you scratch the surface, that's only skin deep. I guarantee some of the layoffs are about AI, but they are due to a disconnected and out to lunch CEO who has been fueled by the marketing hype of other companies. Or, as you
Mm.
said, just using the AI hype for a stock bump and at the same time reduce their bottom line. There are still so many companies out there that can't even understand how to apply current technologies to their company and have failed tech transformation after tech transformation. Sometimes I think they believe their only solution is to keep trying until something becomes so easy that it finally sticks. But really, it's because their business is so convoluted, it just keeps getting in the way of improvement. And people are invested in keeping it that way. Or software, or eventually AI might steal their jobs.
Mm. Interesting.
I think I agree with everything he said.
I agree with everything he said except one. He mentioned something about AI not being able to find relationships between or how did he put it exactly? Let's see.
Let me try to find it.
Relation building structures, the same as same capacity as humans do. I think they do. They do have that ability to do that relationship analysis, right? And I think it's simplistic to think that they can't because, like I said, internally, what they do is they have neurons that match different concepts. And then using like vector math and all that, they're able to relate concepts with other concepts in a very um human like way, right? So for example, if a conversation has Barack Obama in it, right, they are able to take that concept of Barack Obama and break him down into his different uh, relationships, right? He's the father of Malia Obama and blah, blah, blah. But he's also the president of the United States, but he's also this, he's also that. And depending on how the conversation is flowing, they are able to make those connections. So I don't think that's the limitations of AI, or that's not a limitation that I don't see them overcoming. They are going to overcome it.
I don't
Where
think.
yeah. Yeah, where it gets tricky is this. There's a fundamental, I think I kind of missed that. I kind of missed that during our last talk. The fundamental gap I see between AI and humans today is that what think about it, what a human is doing is you are both doing training and inference at the same time. You're both making decisions and you are learning at the same time. They are not two separate things, right? They are intertwined together. But with the AI that exists today, there are two separate things, which means that the AI's limits are that the AI's limits come when they see new information they haven't seen before, aka creativity, right? Because they weren't trained on that data. Does that make sense?
I think so, but that's not what I interpreted his statement to me. I
Okay.
interpreted it a different way. So
Okay.
in that video that we recorded, um, I was making the argument that I don't think has the ability to reason. And the example that I gave was that AI hasn't yet matched the problem solving skills of maybe a principal or a staff engineer, where given a problem, a staff or principal engineer is going to keep asking why, like the five whys,
Mm,
and then from drilling down to root cause analysis, be able to make a decision that, hey, even though it appeared at a low level, how do I write this code given these factors?
mm,
At a high level, when doing root cause analysis or asking why after why after why after why after why,
mm-hmm,
what we really need to do is not really have to write code at all. We just tweak our policy, our business policy, and it goes
mm,
away. And now we don't have to worry about 160 man hours of effort to
mm,
deliver a next feature. And so, with that said, if they can train AI to do root cause analysis of asking why after why after why after why, and then for it to draw a conclusion on a solution that
mm-hmm.
isn't necessarily garbage in garbage out, but deductive reasoning, then we would have graduated to something nice, for lack of a better term. So that's kind of what I captured from what he was saying.
So okay, yeah, I also agree with that as well. I think the AI doesn't have the capacity to reflect. What you're talking about is reflection, right?
Okay.
Now,
I thought it was
reflect.
deductive reasoning, or those two different things.
No, they are two different things. So if you say why, deductive reasoning is this is true, this is true, therefore this other thing is true. That you deduced an answer. But
Got it.
what you described was reflective, right? Why is this way? And then you move a step up. Okay, it's because of this. Why is this way? And I would even argue that there are a lot of humans that don't have that reflective capability, right?
My ex.
Um, but you get what I mean, right? Like it's something that is difficult even for humans as well. So I wouldn't really knock the AI for not having that ability. But yes, that's still another area that the AI falls short. It doesn't have the ability to reflect on itself and reflect on its decisions, which is why. So instead, what they did was they faked it in ChatGPT. So now in ChatGPT, when you correct the AI and say, "Hey, this your reasoning is wrong," it has a standard reply that says, "Oh, yes, you're right." Blah 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 blah, and that's fake. That's not real, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and if it did have reflection,
yeah,
we're not talking about .NET. Um,
yeah.
but if it were capable of reflecting, that would be a game changer. You know what it would disrupt the most
Well,
is all human beings are effed up based on whatever they experienced in their childhood. So it would completely replace psychologists and therapists, right? You have a
mm,
machine helping you unload
reflect.
unload the experiences that you had and why you're so tied into these past experiences as your identity or your badge of honor, and they'll coach you on how to get rid of it. And yeah, I mean, it's going to know your history, and especially with pharmaceuticals or the the healthcare industry, it's going to know a lot of stuff about you and about your parents and grandparents. So
Yeah,
it could trace like what can be inherited, such as mental health issues, etc. So
yeah. I said something very important. The last time we spoke on this, I said that the AI, what we call AI today, all these machine learning models, GPTs, and so on and so forth, that they aren't really intelligent because they there's something magical about being the user of these things. But once you open under the hood and see how they actually work, right, then it just like it completely eliminates whatever fairy tales or fairy dust you thought was inside of it. So for example, there's something called the context window. That context window is how much of context that a particular transformer has about a subject. And that window is finite. So what tends to happen is if the context window is small, then any new information is generating after that point, right, becomes hallucinations, right? It becomes, saying things, you have no clue what you're talking about and things like that. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think in a conversation that you and I had over the phone, I had referred to AI as a savant toddler.
Yeah.
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 It's a
Yeah,
it's a it's a,
exactly.
it's a little retard that is very knowledgeable. So
I, yeah, and not to rehash, that episode. If you haven't watched it, you guys should go check it out. But one of the things I mentioned was the if you boil down the arguments, right, to its fundamental essence, it's this: can someone who doesn't have knowledge simulate understanding? Somebody who only has knowledge simulate understanding. Where I gave the analogy of like someone who doesn't understand Chinese but is able to but has access to all Chinese materials, all the writings and everything, and is intelligently matching Chinese symbols with Chinese inputs and giving the outputs, right? The question is, giving that person an infinite amount of time, the ability to read very, very quickly, can that person fool a Chinese speaker into thinking that he understands Chinese, right? And at the heart of it is what AI is doing right now. So Personally, I would say no, because understanding is different from knowledge, right? You may know something because you have access to the information, but the understanding is on another level. It's on a meta level, right? Where you are able to hmm, you are able to apply
I,
the mental model you have on the specifics of whatever question you are being asked.
just because a 3-year-old can sing their ABCs doesn't mean that they know how to identify A, B, and C.
Correct. Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Exactly.
okay. Let's move on to the next comment. I didn't
Yeah.
realize this comment would be so like impactful. Like,
Yeah.
good thing we
Yeah.
chose three and not four. All
Yeah.
right.
So keep them coming, guys. We love these kinds of comments.
All right. So let's see another one. Okay. Am I seeing a pattern here?
Yeah.
Um, the reason why I paused is because the second comment that I selected was also from Polaris Zero I,
Yeah.
unless I just clicked on the same.
No, no,
Uh,
no. It's from the same guy.
okay. So I'm starting to like Polaris Zero I. Okay.
Yeah, keep it coming. We love it.
Okay, let me prepare. Let me take a deep breath because he wrote a lot. All right. I completely understand where. Okay, well, let me provide the context. I'm sorry, everybody. The
Mm,
context is ethics versus office politics in the tech industry. Okay. And this was an episode that I conjured up in which I was talking about a political a conflict of interest, right?
yeah.
And where it's interesting how your employer will require you to take like monthly training, monthly ethics training, and you have to go through
Uh-huh.
the PowerPoint slides and pick, A through D or between A and D. What would have you have done if you were Becky or if you were Arnold, if you were presented the following situation? And so it's mandated that you take these ethics training courses, but it doesn't mean anything because with office politics, you're just expected to be a team player. And I don't think we really said it on air, Odie. I think we said it in yet another probably hour long conversation with me and you on the phone that you said when you look at some of the biggest failures of companies and how there was just ethical issues, just about every single organization was ripe with their personnel being complicit, meaning that they wouldn't have failed at that scale if the culture wasn't on board. To the employees were not complicit with leadership to mislead or to deceive.
Correct.
I remember that conversation we had over the
Yeah.
phone. So
Yeah.
all right, so that's the context, and I recommend like listening or maybe even watching that episode of ethics versus office politics in the tech industry. So Polaris Zero I says, I'm starting to think Polaris Zero I is ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT agent is like writing these, but I completely understand where you are coming from, Scott. I am working at a place right now that is just unable to change their perspective at all. They
Mm,
think they do, but they really just do the same thing whenever they say they are changing. I find this to be quite prevalent in business and has nothing to do with tech, but the culture of management. Constantly, they are dragging in features that counteract their own goals. Deciding what solutions should look like architecturally, which devs then just implement without thought. I have constantly tried to change my team's working habits, but to no avail. I
mm.
have found that the culture of a place is nothing you can budge as a developer or architect, at least not without a seed of change already there to latch onto. You
Yes.
can, however, try and change your own team, but even that depends on the people you get placed with. If you do manage to become a high functioning team, the business will want to split you up onto other teams to spread your knowledge, in air quotes. But of course, we know that's a poison pill. Also, now that Agile has been mutated into positions that are used to micromanage devs like Scrum Masters and product, Scrum Masters usually have no teeth and are looked at like do nothings because if they follow Agile practices and push back on product too much, the product team will use their power to have them replaced.
Mm,
Product pretends to understand priority, but then constantly decides to circumvent it whenever it suits their needs. Sometimes it's because they are just scatterbrained, and others is because random business guy asked for something and they want it to look good.
mm,
Anyway, this dude wrote like 9 paragraphs. Okay. Anyway, 2 years ago, here I was in your place. Though working as a developer, we were working on a backend replacement, which was also being used as a subsidiary. And in fact, it was them who first created it. We were brought onto the team to help development and to implement features for the larger company. I brought up my concerns that since we're trying to integrate with our front end, that we have in fact delivered nothing at all.
mm,
I was laughed off basically. 6 months later, that manager was fired, presumably for making no progress on the project. So a little better, but the culture of the place still required handholding from the CTO, who was trying to change the culture to keep product focused.
mm.
Anyway, I had thought about going to the CTO about this, but decided against it. I am also a contractor and decided it wasn't my place.
Yeah.
I do feel that the reception would have probably been good, however, since he was brought up to shake things up. I really think it depends on where you are, and what the culture is like. And if there is already an air of change, I agree that as a contractor, it's your job to do things in the way the company requests. If they are requesting consulting about dev practices and are open, then fine. But if they aren't, then commenting on your customer's lack of good practices is just going to hurt you, no matter how political or unbiased you sound. People need to be ready to change. They have to go through pain in order to see that something isn't working. And then hopefully they come out of it wanting to make things better. It's unfortunately that more people can't learn from others' mistakes, but it just doesn't seem that common. There might be those who do want change, but since they are overwhelmed by the cultural norm, it's hard for them to make progress about hurting their own standing.
Mm,
Those wanting change need to reach critical mass before the progress can be made. Most people are only open to certain amount of evidence, no matter how overwhelming it is. If they find something a problem, they may bother with or they won't bother with any solution that would require too much change in their habits, no matter how much better it may actually make things. So long as just towing the line is good enough, they will continue to do it until their job is in jeopardy, because at the end of the day, they just want a paycheck and go home and live comfortably. Others are
mm,
worse and sacrifice the long term in hopes that they will get promoted out of the failing project. This is why big businesses become stagnant. I pretty well feel I keep working for the same company at the same time over and over again because I keep entering business at a time where they want to make a transition. Whether they call it agile transformation within air quotes or something, I see them make the same mistakes over and over. I stopped caring a long time ago because it has nothing to do with tech, though they think it does. It has to do with them, but they don't see it. So nothing ends up changing, at least not for a long time. They don't understand the most technical people just have their hands tied by, or just have, take two. they just, or they don't understand that most technical people just have their hands tied by them, and that's why nothing is getting done.
mm,
Sometimes it's because of regulation or some good reason. Most other times, it's just because that's the way things are, within air quotes. Too much time at a place like this, and everyone becomes numb to the pain. Leave now, or prepare to be laid off when they try to shake things up, and you're too indoctrinated to work anywhere else.
mm,
If you're a contractor, don't renew. If you're through some agency, then bug them weekly about what other contracts they have, or just go to another agency.
Mm. Man, that was, yeah, that was a lot, and I agreed with pretty much everything he said. Something subtle he mentioned that I think is also important to highlight is that change doesn't just, you can't, especially as an individual, you can't just come into a system and effect change. That change has to have had some momentum, right? And then you have to calculate what the cost would be, right, to your reputation, to your standing, for being part of that wave of change versus being on the other side of the change. If you're the only person screaming fire in a building, be rest assured that you'll be thrown out as a mad person, right? Because it's just it's just human nature at that point, right?
Mm,
So yeah, one thing I would say, one thing I would, because I like to think of what is the solution. Anytime I have a problem or I see a gap somewhere, I'm constantly thinking to myself, what if there was a solution? What would it look like? I think the solution would be something akin to, you know, playing politics, which is looking at which key people you can get on your side, right? Who do you who which high ranking person in the company do you have his or her ears, and then pitch that idea to them, make them buy the idea, and if they buy the idea, you then pitch it to another person, and then you can have that critical mass going before you make any move or make anything that could challenge the status quo. That's what I think anyway.
mm. In that experience that I shared for that
Hmm.
episode, so I was the domain architect.
Yeah.
I had already had this project design document in which I detailed or articulated how the development effort was going to be managed, the work that was going to be done in series, the work that could be done in parallel between two teams, the
Hmm.
critical path, the dependencies between the various work items in order to recognize a feature or realize a feature. I was doing all that. But what I kept running into was product, right? The product managers,
Hmm.
they were dictating how the work would be implemented. Not what work would get implemented. They were dictating how it would get implemented. Meaning the product managers were saying, "Yeah, we need this feature. Yo, we're going to take team A to do this feature, and we're going to use team C to work on that feature." And I'm like, "No." um, team A has built this system over here or this module. Team B or Team C has built this other module. And I'm a firm believer that you build it, you run it, you maintain it, you monitor it, and you're held accountable for it, right? It's your baby. You put in the work and you should own it. It's your baby, right?
Hmm.
When you start cross pollinating teams across different modules that they haven't worked on, then I see it being a higher probability of no one really owning the quality of that module,
Yeah.
because now you have two, even three different teams. Each team maybe 4 to 5 developers that have their hands in it. No, that's a horrible idea. And of course, I wouldn't say horrible, but like that goes contrary to what we need. And I'm like, even referencing Conway's law, and of course they're like, "Who's Conway?" I'm like really, we're managing systems development,
Mm.
and we don't know what Conway's law is. This is what I'm up against, like having to educate or mentor not just the developers, but having to mentor leadership.
Mm.
And I don't have that authority, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Mm.
Good therapy. Mm.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Next one is we did an episode with my one of my favorite thought leaders in software development. There's a couple. This one was Scott Blashin, the business of domain modeling, right? So
Hmm.
the title of this episode was the business of domain modeling with Scott Blashin. I like Scott. He he's just very simple, man. He's not like
Yeah.
a he doesn't market himself as a really smart guy,
Hmm.
which he is. He markets himself as a teacher, and he just used simple language, right? So there is a hold up. The one that I picked was why am I reading other comments to qualify the one that I already picked? So there's a comment that I picked by user. I say user by viewer Locker47. Okay,
Okay.
and he says he or she says the following: Audience Guy briefly discussed functional programming in enterprise or FANG, and I have different experience working with startups in a developing nation. Yes, the business value of functional programming is not just in its performance or language features. The major benefit is it attracts high performing tech leads and ICs who are familiar with concepts like functional reactive domain modeling, actor models, effect systems, etc. And they can iterate and refactor product very quickly. Before I continue reading, Odie, what's
Hmm.
ICs? Independent contractors?
Yes, individual contributor, independent contractors.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mm.
All right, so reading on. However, these teams command high salaries and require long candidate searches, even more so in my country. And these
Mm.
might burn through startup capital quicker than finding product market fit. I've seen a few companies strategically migrate their functional programming code base to C Sharp, Java, or JavaScript to decrease labor costs. That sounds like Jet.com, right?
Yeah.
Um, increase their hiring pool, and buy time for the product to gain traction. The obvious solution to increase the supply of developers would be to improve education and acceptance of functional programming in our industry. But sadly, we are far off from that, and I suspect some markets from developing nations experience similar challenges.
Mm.
That's it.
I think uh, I think that's a very insightful comment. Um, I think that's very insightful because he's right. How many functional programmers do you have? You know, and if you really wanted, if the focus is shipping the product, developing the features, having as many hands working on it as possible, you want one of the mainstream languages. You want to use those mainstream languages because you know you can move fast with more hands and so on and so forth. But it's a dichotomy sort of, because at the same time using those languages means you are dealing with more bugs, you're dealing with more, um you are writing more abstractions, you are writing more complicated code, and things like that. So it's not clear to me, because jet.com is a good example, starting with F sharp with a core dedicated team that was very experienced, and they were able to iterate quickly and um build out their infrastructure very quickly. Same with WhatsApp as well. WhatsApp used Elixir, and they were able to scale to billions of users before they got acquired by Facebook. I think WhatsApp had like the highest acquisition per employee ratio or something like that, where for each employee, the value of the company per employee was like maybe $1 to $500,000 or something like that, which was insane. But long story short is I'm not convinced that switching from, say, a functional language to a more mainstream language just so you can get more junior developers to work, or get cheaper labor. I'm not, it's not exactly clear to me if that is a winning strategy for every
It's
project.
not.
Okay. Why? Scott was like, is that?
It's
Okay,
not.
right. No, no. Okay,
The
so
reason why is
let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Oh yeah, time out. Let's do it this way, right? I am saying it's a 50-50. It depends. So I'm for the sake of this conversation moving forward, I'm going to be on his side now. I'm going to argue his perspective. All right, go.
the majority of software projects today, as
Yes.
well as for the foreseeable future, are not managed by engineers. They're managed by finance folks, meaning accountants.
Mm-hmm.
They see just financial figures. They don't understand what goes into engineering. They don't understand that developers are not all equal.
Mm-hmm.
They sincerely believe that here's a project, here's the manpower that we need. They kind of treat it like law enforcement or infantry. They view it
Yes.
as manpower, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not physical.
Yes.
It's
Mental.
experience and it's problem solving in which, like Odie, I think you're humble enough. Like you may be like a couple years ahead of me in development. Surely
Mm.
there's people 5 years ahead of you, right?
Yep.
You'll
Definitely.
acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
so, but these accountants that are managers of engineering, they they don't view managing the development effort the way you or I would manage the development effort. So
Mm.
that's what you want to call it. In the courtroom, we would say Exhibit A. Okay,
Yes.
Exhibit B would be the following. You already alluded to it. You alluded to both. Your FP languages are a generation further than your object-oriented languages, meaning
Mm-hmm.
that even like when F Sharp came out in 2008, it's still learned for the last what, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years. Whenever C Sharp came out, longer for Java, it picked up on the lessons and growth opportunities of those languages, just like C Sharp and Java built on the growth opportunities of C++. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, so what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that when you're dealing with a antiquated language such as C Sharp or Java, you have to, as you already alluded to, you have to write more code. Okay. When you
Yeah.
write more code, you're exposing a larger surface area for bugs to do their work, right? For bugs to be exposed.
Yeah.
Okay. Not just a larger surface area for maintaining code, for reading code, for bugs to be exposed in the code, but a larger surface area, I would argue, for patching those bugs and whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah.
You recognize new bugs as a side effect of not patching it such that it's an isolated case. That's just the code part.
Mm.
Remember, these accountants, they see manpower. They don't see engineering, right? They don't see
Yeah.
translated. They don't see force multipliers such as like a Mark Seaman or a John A.
Mm.
DeGos, right? They
Yeah.
see they see a whole bunch of like uh, one half Scots or I don't know, 1/10 Odies, right? And they'll
Mm.
just keep throwing people at it. So what happens when you keep throwing people? Well, now you're increasing the complexity of communication and syncing. There's more orchestration involved. There's more
Yeah.
ceremony involved because of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Those product people, they don't go to engineering school to understand those principles, the cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
architects, seasoned engineers, they understand those consequences, those ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, Exhibit C, which is more anecdotal, is I've never been on a shitty functional programming team ever.
Mm.
Every functional programming team that I've been on, or functional programming
Mm.
shop that I've been on, I was never the best or the most mature in FP or functional programming, which is
Yeah.
humbling because I'm pretty arrogant. And for me to acknowledge that there's some dudes that are like years ahead of me, there were, right?
Yeah.
And every single FP shop that I've been in, automated test suites or regression suites, they weren't optional. They were first class citizens. Every single one. When you submit a code review or a pull request, you have to have your tests. My experience with being an object oriented developer is it is optional. It's nice to have,
Mm.
right? So it's a completely different community with
So
completely different priorities and values.
yeah, so to add to what you're saying, I think that has also been my experience as well, in the sense that I don't know if you've seen there's this meme going around of a soccer pitch where they had like 100 like primary school children playing against three professional soccer players. Have you seen that
No,
video?
I've seen the women's professional soccer players play against a high school of boys,
Oh,
and they didn't even score.
no, this one was different. This one was just three professional players against
Okay.
100 children, and the three professional players were still able to win the 100 children, right? And the way they did it was essentially they realized that all the children will run towards the ball, so they spread themselves apart, and then we're using long crosses to redirect all the children until they scored. So the reason I brought this example up is that you are right. The last team I worked with that was like all functional programmers, they were so we were such an elite squad, and I was probably the least technical in the team, right? Some of them even had PhDs. But we were such an elite squad that we were able to ship what I would say is a very, very complicated product. And we were just a team of, I don't know, 10 people, 12 people. Um, and even when I worked with OOP shops and we were like maybe 30, 40 developers, we didn't have the kind of you know what? It's like comparing a battalion in an army with SEAL Team 6. That's a good way to analyze it, right? Yes, you have more boots on the ground, but what value are those boots on the ground against elite trained snipers, for example, right? You can't compare them. So, yes, to your point, you're right. In the sense that if you're a startup, you have two levers to pull. Do you pull the throw more people scale I would say scale horizontally, throw more people at the problem, or do you want to scale vertically, which is throw more experienced targeted hands and have them operate in the most efficient way possible, right? So that's why I said in the beginning that it's not a one way or the other, right? It all depends on what product you're trying to build, what what the team culture is, and so on and so forth. Because I can assure you, if you're building something that is inherently novel and complicated, you don't want to throw more people at the problem because you are just increasing the scale of the problem. You get what I mean? Like, for example, if you're building an operating system from scratch, or you're building something that requires the expertise necessary, right? You don't want to just say, oh, let's just hire 20 junior developers and put them on the project. Because now the senior developers are now having to police the junior developers aside from doing the work itself. So
No, but it's a digital transformation.
oh man, this was a great episode. I think
And that is the preview clip.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so thank you so much, Polaris Zero I, for your comments. Thank you as well. What's the name of the?
It was something 47. Give me one second.
Yeah,
It was Locker 47.
Locker 47. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. Put your comments below. We appreciate it and we discuss these things. So yeah,
Yeah,
Scott.
we're experimenting with different formats of episodes. This was
Yeah,
my idea. I thought
yeah,
about this.
true, true, true.
So, hey, thanks everybody, and write comments. All right.
Yes. All right, peace.